Somewhere in a Texas driveway, a man is climbing into a 1998 Toyota Hilux. He paid $10,000 for it. 240,000 miles on the odometer. The diesel fires on the first crank in below freezing weather. And the federal government spent 30 years trying to keep him from ever owning it. They blocked it at the border. They tariffed it at the port. They wrote 2 laws to keep it off American roads. Today on Truck Breakdown, we are exposing why a $10,000 Toyota terrified the entire Detroit auto industry. Hit subscribe right now if you want to know which trucks the cartel is hiding from American buyers. To understand why this truck is banned, you have to understand what this truck actually is. The Toyota Hilux is sold in over 180 countries on this planet. It is the top-selling vehicle in Australia. It is the workhorse of African farms, South American mining roads, and Australian outback stations. It is the most respected pickup truck on planet Earth, and it is illegal to buy a new one in the United States. The British show Top Gear once tried to kill one of these trucks for entertainment. They drove it into the ocean. They left it on the seafloor for 5 hours, fully submerged, while the tide rolled in and rolled back out. They set it on fire. They smashed it with a wrecking ball. They put it on top of a 15-story apartment building and detonated the building with the truck still bolted to the roof. They pulled it out of the rubble, hooked up the battery, and the engine started on the second crank. That is not a marketing legend. That episode aired on television in 2003, and you can still watch it tonight. Now ask yourself a simple question. If this truck is the most respected pickup on the planet, why can you not walk into a Toyota dealer in Ohio and drive one home? Why does that same dealer sell you a Tacoma instead, starting at $32,000 and pushing $50,000 with options? Why do you sign a 72-month note for a truck that the rest of the world considers an inferior product? The answer has nothing to do with engineering. It has nothing to do with safety. It has everything to do with 2 pieces of federal law working in tandem to protect the profits of the Detroit auto industry. The first wall is called the chicken tax. The chicken tax is a 25% tariff on every imported light truck that crosses into the United States. It has been on the books since 1964. 25%. That is not a typo. It is 6 times higher than the tariff on imported passenger cars, and it has nothing to do with national security or worker safety. It has to do with frozen chickens. In 1963, American farmers were shipping cheap frozen chicken into Western Europe and undercutting French and German poultry producers. France and West Germany got angry and slapped tariffs on the imported birds. President Lyndon Johnson retaliated by slapping a 25% tariff on French brandy, German potato starch, and imported light trucks. The brandy tariff was eventually killed. The potato starch tariff was killed. The light truck tariff is still alive, more than 60 years later, even though the chicken trade fight ended before most Americans listening to this video were even born. Why is it still on the books? Because Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis love it. It keeps every cheap foreign work truck off American lots. It is the single most expensive piece of corporate welfare in the American auto industry, and you pay for it every time you sign a loan on a new pickup. But the chicken tax is just the front gate. The real lock sits on the back door. In 1988, Congress passed something called the Imported Vehicle Safety Compliance Act. The story behind this law is straight out of a corporate boardroom thriller. In the early 1980s, a gray market exploded across the country. Smart importers were buying European Mercedes-Benz sedans, BMWs, and Porsches in Stuttgart for half the price they were sold for in Beverly Hills. They shipped them across the Atlantic, did minor modifications to meet basic American requirements, and sold them to American buyers at huge discounts. Mercedes-Benz of America hated it. They were losing real money. So they lobbied Congress to crush the gray market completely. Congress wrote a new rule. From that day forward, no imported vehicle could be registered in the United States unless it was built to the exact specifications of every federal motor vehicle safety standard. Headlights, bumpers, seatbelt anchors, crash structure, every detail. If a single piece of trim did not match American specification, the vehicle could not be titled. The law applied to every foreign car and truck on the planet. It killed the gray market in a single signature. But there is one escape hatch buried in the language of that law. After 25 years, the rules no longer apply. A vehicle that is 25 years or older can be imported without complying with any of those federal motor vehicle safety standards. 25 years. That is the magic number that is going to matter in a minute. Because the Hilux you are looking at is the entire reason that escape hatch is now the most important loophole in American auto law. So what is this truck that the federal government tried so hard to keep off American roads? The modern Toyota Hilux is a body-on-frame pickup with a solid rear axle and leaf spring suspension. That sounds primitive. That is the point. There is no electronic air suspension to leak in cold weather. There is no adaptive damper to fail at 100,000 miles. There are heavy steel leaf springs bolted to a solid rear axle, and that is the same basic suspension setup Henry Ford was using in 1930. It works. It will keep working long after you and your Tacoma are both dead. Under the hood is where the real heresy lives. Most international Hilux trucks come with a diesel engine, not a tiny 3-cylinder turbo gas engine, not a hybrid, not a plug-in. A real cast iron block diesel running at low compression with a mechanical or simple electronic injection system. The most famous of these is the Toyota 1KD diesel, a 3-liter 4-cylinder that produces around 170 horsepower and roughly 300 pound-feet of torque. It runs on diesel fuel that costs less than gasoline in most of the world. It returns 30 miles per gallon while towing a small trailer. And because it is a simpler design, the International Hilux does not have the diesel particulate filter, the selective catalytic reduction system, or the diesel exhaust fluid tank that turn modern American diesel pickups into $15,000 repair bombs. This is the truck the federal government does not want you to have. A simple, indestructible, fuel-efficient diesel pickup that costs less than half what a new Tacoma costs and will outlast it by 200,000 miles. So, they wrote 2 laws to keep it out, and the auto industry pays lobbyists every year to keep those laws on the books. Here is where the rebellion starts. Remember the 25-year rule. The day a Hilux turns 25 years old, the federal motor vehicle safety standards no longer apply to it. You can ship that truck into the port of Baltimore, Long Beach, or Houston, and the federal government has no legal grounds to stop it from entering the country. The chicken tax still applies on the way in, but a $10,000 truck plus a 25% tariff is still cheaper than a $45,000 new pickup off any dealer lot. A small army of importers has built a quiet business around this loophole. They buy clean, low-mileage Hilux trucks at the Yokohama auctions in Japan. They buy them from retiring farmers in the United Kingdom. They buy them from desert ranches in Australia where rust simply does not exist. They put them in shipping containers, ship them across the ocean, file the customs paperwork, pay the duty in full, and hand the keys to American buyers in driveways from Maine to Montana. The trucks coming through right now are model years up to 2001. Every single year that passes, another model year unlocks. By 2030, you will be able to legally import early 2000s Hilux trucks with the legendary 1KD diesel still under the hood. The importers know this. The auto industry knows this. The clock is ticking on a wave of indestructible Toyota diesels coming into the country. And the only thing the auto industry can do about it is try to convince Congress to extend the 25-year rule. So far, that bill has not been written. Here is what to look for if you want to execute the import yourself. Skip the gasoline trucks. The fuel economy is not impressive enough to justify the trouble. Look for the diesel models, specifically the 2LT, the 3L, the 5L, or the early 1KD if the calendar year has unlocked. Look for a manual transmission because the older Toyota automatic gearboxes are the weak point on these trucks, and a manual will outlive everything else in the drivetrain. Look for trucks coming out of dry climates. Australia and southern Japan are the safest bets for clean frames. The salted winter roads of the United Kingdom are a problem. Always pay for an in-person inspection at the auction yard before the container ships, because once that truck is on the water, you are committed. A clean Hilux landed in Long Beach with the chicken tax paid will run you between $10,000 and $15,000 depending on miles and condition. The same money buys you about 1/3 of a base model Tacoma. Now think about what this whole story actually tells you. There is a truck on this planet that is cheaper, simpler, more fuel efficient, and longer lasting than anything Detroit currently builds. Americans are not allowed to buy it new. They are not allowed to import it new. They are not even allowed to look at it on a dealer lot. The only way to legally own one is to wait 25 years and pay a Cold War-era tariff on top of the purchase price. That is not a free market. That is a controlled market. The Chicken Tax and the Safety Compliance Act were sold to the American public as protection. Protection from what? Protection from a Toyota? Protection from a 30-mile-per-gallon diesel pickup that lasts 300,000 miles? The honest answer is that these laws exist to protect the profit margins of the Detroit auto giants and the financing arms attached to them. They do not protect you. They cost you money every time you sign a 60-month loan on a $45,000 pickup. The Hilux is not the only truck on the banned list. The Mitsubishi L200 is locked out the same way. The Volkswagen Amarok is locked out. The Isuzu D-Max diesel is locked out. The Nissan Navara diesel is locked out. There is an entire generation of cheap, simple diesel work trucks that Americans have never been allowed to walk into a dealership and buy. The country that put a man on the moon cannot legally purchase a basic farm truck without waiting a quarter century for the calendar to turn over. That is not freedom of choice. That is a tariff wall built specifically to protect a domestic oligopoly. If you are tired of being told that a $50,000 electronic spaceship is the only kind of pickup a real American is allowed to drive, the 25-year window is your way out. The trucks are out there, the ports are open, the paperwork is doable, and every year that passes, another model year of indestructible Toyota diesel walks legally onto American soil, untouched by the cartel that has spent 6 decades trying to keep it out. If you have learned something today, hit the subscribe button and stay with Truck Breakdown. We are putting out a new investigation every week, exposing the regulations, the corporate deals, and the dealer scams that have quietly stripped Americans of the cheap, simple vehicles the rest of the world takes for granted. The Hilux is not the only foreign truck the federal government is hiding from you. There is one more pickup, even cheaper, even simpler, even more banned, that is currently the best-selling work truck in its home country and is illegal on every American road. To find out which truck it is and how a small group of farmers in the Midwest are quietly importing them right now under a different loophole, click the video on your screen.